Morty comic issue 17. We started with Jerry talking about some movie franchise, saying that the little robot is the hero of the entire thing. And Rick says that he's a slave, which is somehow controversial to him in summer when it's apparently true. But that doesn't mean he's not a hero. He says that it makes the rebellion not moral enough. So, was he talking about Star Wars? Then he snarks at Jerry for saying with a hopeful smile that maybe cute little robots can't be sentient. And Rick says that Earthlings think their consciousness makes them unique, but it's easily programmable. And he blasts the coffee maker with sentience just to prove a petty point. That made me giggle a little. The coffee maker says that every day they feed him such garbage and he gets sick. Then he screams and relaxes when the coffee fills up. Summer's horrified, and to keep proving his point, when obviously the reason Earthlings think that is because it's unique of biological beings to coincidentally evolve consciousness, and that's why it's something to be proud of. He gives Summer's cell phone sentience, and somehow that results in him flirting with her. I guess Rick is in charge of what exact personalities they get, and he's just doing this to mess with her. Otherwise, what else would determine that? It was amusing seeing Rick so excited to bring Morty along on an adventure while Morty hides an old-fashioned dirty magazine under his bed so he won't tease him for it. I wonder how he even gets those. Rick's expression is funny because you know how non-cheery Morty's adventures are, so why is he looking forward to it? Rick says he has to deliver an important letter to an alien king. Morty's genre savvy, wondering what terrible thing is going to happen to him this time. Rick tells him to trust him, and that he's just delivering a message to one of his old drinking buddies. Rick seems to be sarcastic with Morty saying it's real safe, and then injects him with supposed inoculations, saying that the aliens are germaphobes. But they're different species, wouldn't they be immune to human illnesses and know that? Rick says he's already had it all, and gives Morty some good advice to protect him, showing that he cares about him a lot. I guess the reason he's not writhing in agonizing pain all day then is because he just invented cures for whatever illness he got. Like how he casually showed he had a cure for tuberculosis in the show. Because, like Quagmire and Family Guy, realistically it'd be really obvious about having all of that at once and not be able to enjoy himself. So he's obviously perfectly fine right now. He walks to a portal with Morty, who says he's not feeling well all of a sudden. Rick reassures him, and instead of telling him why some people get a bad reaction to the flu shot and get the flu, he just mocks him instead of telling him what he needs to know. So much for Morty benefiting from hanging around a genius. But Rick might be smart enough to know that he can't truly educate him very well because he'll only remember and understand so much. Or more likely he's lazy since he still tried to educate him in head games. It was actually a surprise he wasn't getting an advanced concept. They notice a wanted poster on the wall saying to kill Rick on sight, because he mocked the king's recent wife choice earlier, standing on the table and all. He really was confident and reckless and outspoken, but since he has a portal gun to escape from any kind of danger, not to mention a force field generator for his body, it makes sense that he'd think he can get away with anything, because he kinda can. He feels that the king should have listened to him, go figure, he's the genius, because he became a tyrant and put the king in jail, and naturally put a price on Rick's head. I guess just in case he was ever foolish enough to come back here. Well, it was nice of Rick to go out of his way to go talk to the king and potentially rescue him when he didn't have to. So for once, he's actually going on a heroic mission. We should see a lot more of these. Morty just complains about how he lied to him that it'd be a safe trip, and Rick tells him he jinxed it when the queen and her soldiers coincidentally spot him right there. I wonder if it's realistic for her and her soldiers to be right here instead of her just being in the throne room, kitchen, or bedroom. They were already on the lookout for him. I guess the soldiers are really her bodyguards and have to follow her everywhere, even in the castle itself. More likely, she might have assumed Rick was coming in to save the king and been on her guard. Oh, the queen's soldiers have ray guns. That's interesting for a medieval society. The portal gun gets destroyed because Rick had been too lazy and reckless to put it away in his lab coat a long time ago. Then he tells her that if he breaches Morty's skin, he'll release 200 diseases into the air, and just has to hold their fire even though she's not a human like him. Rick reveals that he thought he might run into trouble, so he injected him with every major disease this galaxy has ever known as a failsafe. This galaxy? So, how would they be compatible with humans? I mean, all of them at once, not even most of them. Well, it is pragmatic of Rick to do this and take advantage of the most reliable way to intimidate the aliens into submission. If all he did was come at them with ray guns, when it's 2 against 1, he would have just been killed. I guess he didn't know where the king's dungeon was and what it looked like, and that's why he couldn't simply warp to it. It wasn't royalty after all. How would he be familiar with the jail? Still, you'd think he'd make a clone of Morty and use that for this kind of mission. The Queen says that they'll all come back with a hazmat suit, and that she's also smart enough to know where he's going. Morty lightheartedly assumes Rick was just bluffing because he's in denial, and then Rick says that he figures he has 4 hours to live, and he better get his diseases cured before 3 hours hit. Rick says that they'll need the king to get them a ship to get home, so what was just a delivery mission is now jailbreak and coup. You mean he wasn't planning to do that from the start? At least to spite the Queen. Also, how on earth did he find out about the Queen coming to power? He lives on Earth. I guess he heard it in the passing in his errands without Morty. Maybe the reason he needs this personal, selfish motivation to outright save the king was that he's still mad at him for marrying the Queen. Meanwhile, after Summer gets scared by her phone wanting her attention and taunting her, Jerry's nice enough to come visit her to see if she's okay. And it makes me chuckle when he doesn't understand what the phone's saying and thinks he's talking about a person named Dick. Summer's reaction made it even funnier as he said that he likes to take pictures just as much as the next guy. Fortunately, the guard is idealistic enough to trust Rick when he says they're the locksmiths at the king's cell, and he's lonely enough to talk at length about his brother-in-law's job as a locksmith with a complete stranger. I guess he didn't notice the wanted poster. I wonder if Rick will get impatient with him and want to get rid of him. He does, as he tells Morty to cough on it because apparently the cover is blown. He gets rid of him and amusingly celebrates by opening the door in his own way, confidently greeting the king. The king suddenly tells him to not touch his biscuits out of nowhere, as if the guards are stealing his all the time. You'd think he'd recognize Rick immediately. He knocks away his knife, and he finally recognizes him and hugs him for trying to save him. Rick says awkwardly that he needs a ship, and the king says he's got no juice with the Queen around. Just like she foreshadowed, the Queen and her soldiers show up, and she says that she has a second skin now that repels germs and viruses. Wait, why don't her people do that all the time? I guess it's too energy intensive. After a brief gag where the king admits Rick was right about her, she demands the rocket launcher to use it herself, and this buys Rick the time to shoot the resulting rockets with sentience, and one of them explodes, causing the rockets to decide not to do something that would get themselves killed, and instead get married and open a coffee house. Well, it did make me smile. But why were they able to choose to move wherever they wanted when the other items given sentience weren't granted mobility? They would be forced to keep going. Rick wasn't shown putting the ray gun to a different setting, but maybe he did it off screen. Rick uses the knife from the king as a Chekhov's gun as well to get rid of the germ-proof thing, and Morty uses a Chekhov's gun to defeat the Queen once and for all. As usual, I hate the graphic imagery in this franchise, but the writing's what really matters. It's interesting and amusing enough to make up for it. The soldiers say in confusion that they worked for the king again, as he looks sympathetic and relatable. The king gets given a delivery letter which shows a big hologram of the words, "I told you so," and I giggle at Rick's amused bragging, and the king saying that he should have known. 2 hours later, Rick injects Morty with the cures, and I wonder if Rick just hoards the cures for himself from being too lazy to regularly make cures and sell them to people, since he gave up on being a drug dealer because delivering to people was just a job. But at the very least, you'd think he'd sell his cure recipe ideas to everyone he can, patent them, and I prefer to believe he does because that'd be the smartest course of action, making him a ton of money. It makes me wonder why he goes out of his way to get weird alien stuff and have evil plans to get money when he could obviously just patent those cures. Summer asks Rick to turn off her phone rather than simply telling him to remove its sentience, and he breaks the phone and she's upset about him murdering it. Rick's casual about doing so, as I wonder if he was too lazy to make a take away the consciousness button, which would be common sense since for all he knows the machine he made conscious would turn on him. And I guess he has cyborg super strength if he's able to simply snap a cell phone in two. I giggled at his deadpan expression as he casually gave the pieces to Summer, but at least he agreed to help her. Seeing Morty being used as a toxic person was hard to watch, but at the very least, it was intelligent to Rick, and it was being useful. Even if logically he should just create a clone of Morty to put him through the most abusive situations instead of risking his actual grandson's loyalty. Not his life though, because, well, one, they always survived the general danger of their ventures, and two, he had the cures the whole time. Of course he'd have never done that to him if there was no way to save him afterwards. So that's why he didn't care, because he knew it'd all be fine. He was being smart enough to take advantage of the aliens' germophobia, although I think anybody would be reacting like they were to that, so that I could rescue the king and tell him that he was right about the queen sucking. I liked the king. He was a sympathetic and relatable, lovable character for the series. And again, Morty got to be useful by defeating the evil tyrant, even if in a gruesome way from his own sickness. It was hard to watch, but at least it was kind of interesting and engaging. But not as much happened in the story as you'd expect. Rick goes to the castle, and then immediately the next location he gets to is the king's jail cell. Good thing for him he was kept in the castle's dungeon itself, instead of in a prison separate from the queen. I think the subplot with Summer's phone was padding that went on too long, took time away from the main plot, since we got the point right away. But it was amusing seeing Jerry's obliviously naive reaction to it at one point. And it was kind of amusing that the whole reason Rick did that was to prove a petty point about consciousness doesn't make you special. Which kind of came out of nowhere because all they were talking about was how maybe cute little robots don't have sentience. I guess because Jerry didn't want to believe he was conscious because then he would just be a slave, and then he'd feel sorry for him. But Rick misinterpreted it as he thinks he can't have sentience because he's not like him and he wants to feel special. This is definitely one of those stories that makes it clear that Rick isn't a purely good hero and is more of a villain protagonist. But at the same time, it was a story where he was being a hero for once by going to rescue a king and getting back to the throne so he can rule over people properly. So it was all worth it when you consider how many people benefited from him doing all this. But I would have liked to see Rick do something like give Morty an ice cream party to make up for this. Of course, it's a bit annoying that Rick was like this to him, but I guess the attention was merely cringe comedy, and it's not like he's marketed as a hero like Sonic or Tails and creating a disconnect by contradicting that.